G'day guys, and welcome to a 3D-Palace tutorial. This is just going to be a pretty short tutorial, and I'm going to cover how to make a tilable texture. The first things first, we're going to make sure this texture tilables in this vertical direction here. Things to keep in mind, I want to keep this white line. We don't have an end of this white line, so I'll use this one in the process, and I'll remove big features like this kind of repair patches. Sometimes when you're making roads, having repair patches actually adds some variety to your road. But if you're going to be tiling a texture down a long stretch, then it's going to be rather noticeable. And we're going to try to remove that from this image. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to hit F twice on my keyboard. That's going to allow me to remove the framing, so I can kind of easily pan around my image. Now, we're going to actually start, first things first, by whacking an offset on the image. So we're going to make a vertical offset. So we can actually paint out any kind of gap. So we're going to filter, other, offset. Now I'm going to set horizontal to 0 because we're not going to deal with that one. But vertical, the amount doesn't matter right now because I'm going to reverse that when we come back to it. Actually, I'm going to make that about cool. That gives a bit more place to work with. Okay, so now what we need to do is need to go about actually painting out this this gap. Now the big problem we're going to run into, as you can see straight away, is the color difference. It actually gets quite light towards one end of the photograph that we started with. We're going to deal with that in a second. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have a couple of tools at our disposal. We have the clone stamp tool. This one here, you basically will hold Alt to click to set an origin, and then we can basically start painting, and actually we'll paint over. You can see what I'm doing here just looks horrible. We're going to do a bit more subtly than that. This side looks pretty good, like the yellow line lines up pretty well, but I'm still going to come in and kind of smooth this out a little bit. Now this texture is not completely ideal. I'm just going to Alt down the bottom here, just kind of paint it and make sure we don't get a terribly wonky white line. That's not too bad. Yeah, you'll notice the texture resolution changes with the images as it goes up, and that usually happens with a lot of road textures, just because of the angle that people take the photograph. You can obviously harvest from any area you like, and I'm just going to paint out some details there. Now I have a rather soft brush on at the moment. You can see up here that my hardness is set to 0. You can set this to whatever you like. Obviously having a soft brush, you do start to lose some details. Now I'm just going to come in and just clean up a few more spots. Now one thing to keep in mind when you're cleaning up areas like this, we have this dark strip down the middle of each lane. Basically that's the actual colour of the asphalt. The lighter section is for where, like, dirt and grime and kind of dust all gets kind of pushed into the road by the vehicles travelling over it. So if I'm going to harvest an area, I don't want to harvest from here and place it down here, because we'll get a mismatch. We want to try to keep these stripes. So I'm going to harvest from up here and just soften that edge. Now I try to like to do up and downs as well, because that'll actually stop it from being even just a flat line of alterations. Okay. Just whacking and changing it a bit. I change to different areas, that way you don't see a repeating pattern happening over it. This looks like it actually has some kind of line, but I want to try to finesse that line to carry straight through the texture, which will look kind of nice. Except this one here kind of doesn't, so we're just gonna remove that one out. Same with this guy, we're gonna kind of fade him out so it doesn't exist anymore, but remove this so it all looks nice. Now the resolution of this image is higher than what it's going to be when I finally save it. For this purpose I'm going to be aiming at a say a 512 texture as a final result. That's just because I want to. Obviously depending on the resolution of your texture, always try to start with the highest resolution. In my experience, it's a million times easier to downsize an image rather than go up. So we're almost done here. I've just got this. See, I'm just gonna try to finesse this. There we go. Without actually getting it too wonky. Because sometimes when it doesn't line up, it's a real pain in the bum trying to get that to keep as a fairly straight line. Now it just looks like the workman kind of sneezed as he was busy making the road. Okay, so with that out of the way for the moment, I'm going to basically create the end of this, which is pretty easy. I'm just going to use my selection tool, which is at the top here. You can use the lasso tool if you like. I'm going to draw a nice selection around the tip. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Control-Alt-D, which is feather selection. And this is going to give us a soft edge to our feather. I want to pick 10 pixels. I'm just going to Control-C, Control-V to copy and paste it. Now you can see the feathered edge. When I move it over here, you can see that it doesn't actually have a hard edge to the selection, otherwise it would. Having a hard edge makes blending it heaps harder. Okay, so we're just going to edit, transform, rotate 180 degrees, and now look, it's pretty easy. Just kind of line that bad boy up and no one knows that I stole it. That way we get this nice soft edge. Okay, now we're going to try to remove some of this unsightly detail from the road, but I don't want to start clone stamping because you'll notice I start getting a soft edge when I clone stamp too much. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this guy as a simple example. I have here the patch tool. Sometimes you'll find it hidden under the spot healing tool or something, but the patch tool is really handy. What we're going to do is we're going to select an area, and then what I do is I just move the patch. Now what's I complaining about? Wrong layer. So make sure I'm the correct layer. I'm going to move the patch, and so it's basically it's duplicating what's under the patch of where I place it, but then I'll let go, and actually will then color correct the area patched, so it actually matches. This is really useful for removing blemishes on people's faces and things like that. I use this all the time, like really super handy for cleaning up bits of rock or whatever you're trying to clean up. Now I'm thinking I might actually keep this for the moment, but now I'm gonna the offset. I'm gonna remove the filter. So coming here, I'm just gonna put a minus symbol here, and that puts it back to the way the original image was. So now this image will tile straight away in the Y direction, except I think the color's still a little bit off. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually get a new layer, put it at the top. I just noticed before we go any further, don't worry about that. That new layer will kill that. My white line end has actually remained because I didn't actually collapse it down. So we're just going to remove the offset, so back to being plus 400. It's sitting there correctly. We just press Control E to merge it down, and now that's all part of the one. So you can see right now this section is lighter than this section, which tells me there's a slight gradient color that comes down from this long repair strip down to the other end. So we'd have to fix that. So put minus 400. Okay, so now with a new layer, I'm going to change my paint bucket tool to a gradient tool, and I'm just going to put in a straight gradient over the top. Pretty simple. If I hold shift while I'm drawing this gradient line, it snaps it to the 45-degree angles. So now we're going to use this. I'm going to change the blending mode to one of the others. This is the way I like to go through the blending modes. Select one, and while that's still blue, you can actually press down on your keyboard, and it actually will change the blending modes. So once we get one that we're kind of happy with, then I'm going to change the opacity to try to get the look happening for us. So I'm going to go find the one I need. Actually, you know what? Instead of doing that, I'm going to do a brighten and contrast layer. I usually set this to 0 just to start with. and then in its mask I'm going to do a gradient. So now when I change brightness contrast, it's only doing certain areas. So this will take some finessing and a bit of time to try to get it to line up pretty well. But I'm sure you guys are going to have a little bit of patience and get it to look good. Now if I hold Alt and click between these layers, it actually links the two. So when I do one thing to this bottom layer, it's actually going to keep the top layer coming with it. Just double click to kind of loosen it from the being in the background. And yeah, so right now we kind of have a tiling texture. So if I do a for the offset, it actually kind of, we don't actually see the color variation happening there. So I'm just going to undo that offset. So history, we can come to history, offset, kill it. So now if you want to resize it, image size, and set it to whatever size you like. For games you want to try to keep it at square numbers. So in this situation, because I want to keep all the side detail on the edges here, I'm going to change constraint proportions off and just make it 512 on each one. So it does look stretched right now, but when you put it into your game and you put it into a polygon that actually matches the original shape of the image, it'll actually look fine. I try to always save a PSD of a higher resolution than my my JPEG or my Tiger or my PNG, whatever image type you like. That way it's actually easy to go in and modify it, because you do have a larger resolution. Let's say your art director wants a minor change or even wants to up-res the image, you do have a high one to start with. Anyway guys, thank you for listening to this tutorial, and hope you learned something. Bye.